This is part 1 of 3 of an original horror anthology series called The Strangers. You can find part 2 and 3 on my channel. The Strangers are coming. I write a lot of creepy past stories. I'm pretty good at writing scary stuff. So when my editor asked me to write something specifically about knocking on a window, I thought, what kind of knocking on a window story could I come up with that hasn't been done before? Oh, I know. How about the worst house in the neighborhood where if you knock on the window, whatever spirit inside it will know you're there and somehow make your life miserable in ways you can't imagine. For example, if you move in, you should be prepared for a lifetime of bad luck. Your car will constantly break down, pregnancy tests will perpetually be negative. Food will spoil the second you bring it into the house. Socks will disappear, the toilet will run incessantly. Your hairbrush will have hundreds of hairs on it every day. Even if you shave your head, no one will ever want to come over to visit you again. Your reflection will subtly mock you. Furniture will slide across the floor towards you when you sleep. Bathroom tiles will spell out disturbing messages. To anyone who moves into that house, you might as well kiss all your dreams goodbye because the spirit inside that house has other plans for you. But wait, maybe you say, isn't that a bit of wishful thinking on the part of the author? Maybe it has not so much a supernatural curse as a normal human tendency to blame a supernatural curse when their lives suck. Well, good point. Let's change it up a bit. Let's add some monsters into the mix. See, the monster next door always watches you through the window. They can smell fear. When you're scared, they become bold. And when they become bold, they lines do things like abduct your children or kill your pets or stand in the doorway after you step out of the shower. Wait a minute, are you saying these strangers are human? Of course not. If they were human, they would have moved away long ago. We know humans. They always stick around when things are bad. Monsters, though, they keep moving. Monsters are selfish. That's why they only watch you through the window. They don't care about you. They just care about themselves. They judge you. So when my editor suggested I write a creepypasta about a house where the strangers are monsters, I thought how do I make this better than any of the million stories about houses where the strangers are monsters? I know exactly what I'll do. I'll write the story from the perspective of the monsters. This way we get to see the whole thing from their eyes. We learn how they feel about humans. We learn how they think and act. We learn why they really live in that house. See, you humans are smart enough to know what a movie like this would be called. My editor sure is, and he knows his audience. So let's call this one The Strangers. The first part is called The House on Wren Hollow. The rain had been falling for hours. Not a storm, just a steady, whispering drizzle that coated the windows of the old farmhouse in Wren Hollow like a veil. Inside, the silence was thick. No music, no television. Just the occasional creak of wood settling and the rhythmic ticking of a grandfather clock that hadn't told the right time in years. Claire and Mason had moved in 3 weeks ago. Newlyweds, city-born, chasing the dream of quiet country life. The house had been cheap, but they didn't ask questions. They were in love, and love makes you overlook things. Like the fact that the previous owners had vanished without a trace, or that the neighbors never waved back. In the kitchen, Claire hummed to herself as she unloaded the dishwasher. Across the room, Mason poured 2 glasses of water, handing one to Claire. "Penny for your thoughts," he said. She smiled, taking the glass. "Just thinking about how lucky we are," she said. "A new house, a new life. It's perfect." She took a sip. "Too perfect," Mason corrected. "It's a little creepy, but we can fix that," Claire said, setting down her glass. "Give it some time. Make it hours," Mason sighed. "Hours," he echoed. Then he left the room. Claire watched him go. She knew he was worried, and it made her sad. She wanted to tell him everything would be okay, but she wasn't so sure anymore. She heard footsteps in the attic above them, footsteps and voices, whispered voices. They always seemed to be whispering. She strained to listen. She couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like a conversation. She told Mason, of course, but he just laughed. Old house, he said. Probably just settling, but Claire wasn't convinced. There was something else in the house, something she could feel watching her, studying her. Then came the footprints. One morning, Claire found muddy prints on the porch. Bare feet, small, childlike. She traced them with her fingertip. They were too wide, too long. She followed them to the edge of the woods behind the house. They stopped at a tree. A dead tree, split down the middle like it had been struck by lightning. But Claire knew it hadn't been struck by lightning. She felt it when it happened. She was in the kitchen making breakfast. She felt the energy crackle in the air, felt the power surge through the house like a jolt of electricity. She looked out the window. The tree was fine. Then she blinked and it wasn't. That night she dreamed of the tree. In the dream, it bled, snot and blood ran down its bark. It throbbed and pulsed like a living thing. And she could hear the whispers. Now they weren't hushed. They were loud, demanding. They screamed her name over and over. Claire woke up screaming. Mason held her close, whispering soothing words she didn't hear. She pushed him away, breathless. What? She whispered back. What was that? Mason frowned. What was what? The dream, Claire said. I felt it split, open. It hurt. Mason looked away. I know, he whispered. Then he got out of bed. He went to the window and stared out into the woods. You can't escape it, he said. No one can. Claire started marking the days in a journal. She noticed patterns. The footsteps in the attic only came at night. They never came when she was awake. The footprints in the dirt seemed to grow larger over time. They moved closer to the house each day. Sometimes they came inside. She found them on the welcome mat. She found them by the front door. Once she found them on her pillow. The whispers, too, they grew louder, more insistent. She could feel their eyes boring into her skull. She could feel their presence growing stronger. And then the nightmares started. Not just about the tree, about being chased. Through the woods, something tall and thin hunched over, reaching for her with long, skeletal fingers. She smelled wet fur and rot and decay. She felt the slick, slimy touch of dead leaves under bare feet. She heard the crunch of twigs snapping. She tasted dirt and fear and despair. She woke up shaking, heart pounding, drenched in sweat. Then the car wouldn't start. She tried to drive to the store, but the engine just clicked. The battery was fine, the gas was fine, but the car wouldn't start. She called for help, but there was no signal. She tried the landline, but it was dead. Then the power went out. Claire found Mason in the basement, drawing symbols on the concrete floor with charcoal and salt. What are you doing? She asked. He didn't look up. Protecting us, he whispered. From what? She pressed. He shook his head. It doesn't matter, he said. You won't understand. Claire walked away, confused and frightened. What was happening? Why was this house driving them crazy? At 9:17 p.m., the knocks came again. But this time, they didn't stop. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, dash, tap, dash, tap. Tap, dash, tap, dash, tap. Every window. Every wall. The sound surrounded them. Claire screamed. Mason didn't move. Then the front door creaked open. No wind, no movement. Just the door slowly swinging wide. Claire grabbed a knife. She stepped forward. Outside, in the rain, stood three figures, tall, thin, dressed in black. Their faces were pale, stretched, wrong. Like masks made of skin. They didn't speak. They didn't move. They just stared. And then, in perfect unison, they raised their hands and pointed at Claire. Mason whispered, "They've chosen you." Claire ran. She didn't get far. the woods swallowed her. The last thing she heard was the ticking of the grandfather clock. It was 9:17 p.m. Again,